Clayton Colegrove in reply.
Mr. Speaker, I thank members for their contribution tonight. I've got to say that even those who oppose the bill, by and large, have made pretty good contributions and have made some valid points. To the point that was made repeatedly, I think Mr. Bishop was the first person to make it, as he is right. It is very rare, sir, that we would seek to use entrenchment provisions in a wide-ranging way, apart from many of the acts, the Electoral Act and others that he mentioned. It is rare, it is unusual, and the point about it is, it's come to this. That's why. That's right. It's absolutely come to this. These guys over there, sir, would sell their grandmother for sixpence if they could. They could. They've revealed tonight that all bets are off. And I agree with Mr. Bishop. In an ordinary time, in a with a conventional government that listens to the people, that doesn't fire money away or sell assets in a fire sale, as these guys saying they get $10 billion, they ended up getting 4.7. We wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have this provision, and we wouldn't be trying to promote it in the Parliament. I say to Mr. Scott the same thing. But it has come to this, because Mr. Scott and his ilk just fundamentally believe that they have a right to flog everything off. Mr. Shaw made some very pertinent comments from his professional background in terms of the impact and value of Kiwibank during the GFC. But Mr. Scott comes from a place where he says anything goes. But I do agree with him on this point, and I've always maintained this point, that it is not appropriate for politicians to be stuck in and hands-on with SOEs. But this bill doesn't do that. This bill, of course, doesn't prevent Kiwibank and New Zealand Post from taking a whole host and any series of commercial decisions that it deems appropriate under the State-Owned Enterprises Act or the Statement of Corporate Intent. So all the sort of scaremongering and bunkum from Mr. Scott, who I think is better than that. Perhaps Mr. Bennett, we expect it from him. Mr. Bennett may have written his speech for him, but I actually think Mr. Scott is better than the speech he gave. He knows damn well, and other members do, that under the State-Owned Enterprises Act, nothing is precluded apart from if that entity wanted to sell Kiwibank. That's the only decision. So all the sort of scaremongering and the bunkum about the superannuation fund and nanny state and a Labor Party wanting to get in their hands on state-owned assets and interfere. Well, the problem Mr. Scott's got is the history of that, and the history of Labor ministers of SOEs is exactly the opposite, actually, is exactly the opposite. So all this does, sir, as is self-evident, is that it prevents, or it puts a safeguard, I should say, another check and balance, another blockage in the way, another check for some parliamentary scrutiny, 75% majority of Parliament, or a referendum if they were trying to dispose of this asset. And we know there's motivation to do it. We've heard a bit of it tonight, but the capital recycling, the sourcing, the attempt to source $1 to $2 billion for other projects, given they've run out of money from the Future Investment Fund. We know that these guys, if they could get away with it, sir, if public opinion would tolerate it, would sell it. So I just simply say, sir, it has come to this. It is unusual. We shouldn't have to propose measures like this to protect strategic assets, but there it is, we are. The other point that's been made, sir, is why Kiwibank and not others. I simply say to members of Parliament, I'm happy to take an amendment as we go through to cover all state-owned assets if they think that's a good idea. If Mr. Scott thinks we should cover Landcorp, I'm with him. Other assets, I'm with him. Very happy to do that. Kiwi Rail, I'm with him on that. Same as Mr. Bishop, if they want to propose amendments, very happy to cooperate to expand the scope of this bill so that the remaining assets that New Zealanders have, sir, are protected. Sir, this is not inconsistent. This is basically a very precise and surgical bill to ensure that a vital piece of New Zealand's, a vital strategic asset for New Zealand is secured and maintained. And that this Parliament, sir, as representatives of New Zealanders, will decide what happens, not a few National Party cronies working against public opinion with their own interests in play, not those of the citizenry, sir, and I commend the bill to the House.